In March of 2015, 34-year-old Dynel Lane lived in Longmont, Colorado, with her fiancé David Ridley and her 2 teenage daughters from a previous marriage. The previous marriage of 12 years ended in November of 2007, with Dynel filing for divorce, saying that the union was irretrievably broken. Although both parties confirm that it was a mutual separation, the relationship itself did seem to be surrounded by trouble. Her ex-husband Jason would say in an interview, quote, "We didn't have much to do with each other after the split. There was a certain point where we tried to work things out, but it was best that we didn't." End quote. Divorce records show that her ex-husband was charged with third-degree domestic violence after Dynel's head was banged into a car door as the two struggled over their children during an after-school pickup. These charges were later dropped as Dynel did not want to pursue this course of action. The couple had also had a 3rd child together before their marriage ended, and in the year 2000, their youngest son, whose name was Michael Alexander Cruz, was born. In 2002, the 19-month-old boy, known to his family as Little Mac, was playing a game with his sisters whilst their mother was occupied in a different part of the house, and when Dynel went looking for him, she found the boy drowned in a neighbour's pond. There were no signs of foul play, and the incident appears to have been a tragic accident. On his obituary, it is written that he loved to play with his sisters, and had just learned his first song, "Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star." After the loss of her son, Dynel would say that she underwent a hysterectomy, as her and her husband did not want any more children. Following the separation from her husband, Dynel would respond to a Craigslist ad posted by a man named Robert Walsh. The man was looking for a roommate to live with him, and as he had a daughter of his own, he believed that living with a mother and her daughters would be a pleasant experience. During the Christmas holidays of 2011, with her daughters, Dynel would move into his home in Golden, Colorado. Robert Walsh would say that this living arrangement worked out pretty well. He remembers walking into his home one day, the Christmas tree being up, and feeling blessed that he had some people around who actually cared about him. Robert describes Dynel as soft-spoken and friendly, someone who would joke often and was very pleasant to be around. She would join him for morning jogs, and would eventually become friends with one of his neighbours, whose name is Matt. Matt would have similar memories of Dynel, saying that she was the sweetest person and one of the better people in his life, a positive influence. Both of these men never saw Dynel use drugs, and she rarely drank. Matt recalls talking to her about the loss of her son, and would describe these interactions, saying that the death of Michael is something that she thinks about a lot, something that she needed to get it out and talk about, but nothing that seemed to overwhelm her or cause her significant distress anymore. Sometime during 2012, Dynel would hit a few bumps in the road of her life. Through the years of 2010 to 2012, she would hold a nursing aide's license and worked in this field. One evening she would get home from work and tell her roommate Robert that she had been suspended from her job. He would soon learn that this was false and she had actually been fired. To add on to this, shortly after this incident, police would come to Robert's home to speak with him regarding an issue about his ex-wife. As they arrived, they spoke with Dynel at the door, and upon acquiring her identification, discovered that she had a failure to appear warrant out for her arrest, due to an unresolved traffic violation. She is arrested and taken into custody. Robert bails her out, and sometime shortly after, the two amicably part ways as roommates. He recalls the next and last time that he saw her was around a year later in the fall of 2013 at a gas station. Quote, "She was getting gas, and she was like 8 months pregnant. She was definitely big, and she was happy and smiling. She moved like a pregnant woman does. If she was faking it, she wouldn't have the movement of a pregnant woman. She was definitely pregnant." End quote. There is no known record of Dynel giving birth in 2013 or 2014, and other than Robert's mention of it, there are no records that she was pregnant around this time either. Throughout the year of 2014, a pattern begins to emerge, one that sees Dynel telling her friends and family in person and via social media that she is indeed pregnant again. Danelle gets into a relationship with a man named David Ridley, and her family and she move in with him early on in their relationship. At this time, she no longer held her nurse's aid license and was not working. When the couple first got together, she informed Ridley that she had her tubes tied. This worked out for him, as he already had a grown daughter and didn't want another child. He was very surprised when she came to him shortly after that conversation and told him that she was pregnant. Ridley would say that he is aware that although rare, pregnancy can still occur after a hysterectomy, and so he embraced the idea of having another child, proposing to her soon after learning of the pregnancy. Danelle would tell him that the child is a male, and because the family already had so many girls, he had become excited to be the father of a boy. The due date is November of 2014, and over the course of the year, as mentioned earlier, Danelle posts on social media, sharing pictures of her growing belly and ultrasounds of the baby. Their friends would throw them a baby shower, and the couple even decided on a name for the child. They were going to call him James. Ridley and Danelle's daughters are said to have been incredibly excited by the new upcoming addition to their family. The excitement doesn't last though, as Ridley becomes suspicious as to whether his fiancée is actually pregnant. It seems that he is never able to attend the doctor's appointments with her, and on the occasions that he does, something always comes up to get in the way. Quote, "She would say we had doctor's appointments, and we would take off work and sit in the waiting room for hours. Then something would always go wrong, and she'd get agitated, and we wind up leaving." End quote. November 2014 comes and goes, and Danelle still has not given birth. To further add to the confusion of the situation, in January of 2015, she posts on social media that she has had the baby boy already, raising the concerns of some of Ridley's friends. David wants to give his fiancée the benefit of the doubt, but begins to discuss his concerns with his friends. On screen right now is a text message exchange between Ridley and one of his friends in early March of 2015. He says here that he almost kicked Danelle and her girls out of his house the day before, as she has been lying to him about when the child will be born. He says that he knows she is trying to hide something from him, and he would just like to know what that is. He also says that there is a doctor's appointment scheduled, and if he is not able to attend this one, then Danelle will have to leave. 2 days later, Ridley talks with another friend, where he tells this one that a conversation between he, Danelle, and her daughters was had, and that if he doesn't get some answers, the family all understand that they will need to move out of his house. March 16 comes around, and this is the day of one of the doctor's appointments that David is adamant he needs to attend. Unfortunately, earlier that day, their washing machine had broke, spilling water all over the floor, and as the couple are leaving, Danelle slips and falls. They are unable to make the appointment. Ridley, now more desperate than ever for answers, does not want to miss the appointment scheduled for the 18th in 2 days' time. Later that night, Danelle posts on Craigslist, advertising maternity clothing to be given away for free, and rather quickly, 26-year-old Boulder resident Michelle Wilkins answers, interested in the clothes. Michelle is 7 months pregnant, and with her husband are expecting their first child. The couple is said to have been incredibly excited for parenthood. They too had a baby shower recently, and already named their daughter Aurora. Michelle responds to the ad on the 17th, asking if the clothes are available still, and the next morning on the 18th of March at 9 a.m, Danelle confirms that they are. The two organize a time for Michelle to come and collect them from Danelle's house at around noon. At 11:51 a.m, Michelle arrives alone at 1620 Green Place, where Danelle is also home alone, her daughters being at school and her fiancé at work. Ridley not scheduled to be home until about 2 p.m, where he and Danelle were then going to go to the doctor's appointment. As soon as Michelle enters the residence, they go upstairs to a dining area. She immediately notices that Danelle doesn't look as though she is 2 weeks overdue, bursting as she claims she was. Although this is weird, she shrugs it off, as she doesn't know many pregnant people, and says that she is aware that everyone is different. Michelle is handed the bag full of maternity clothes, and the two women begin to talk for around an hour. They discuss mutual interests, and Michelle plays with Danelle's pet bunny rabbit for a little while. They talk about how Danelle's partner works really long hours at a factory, and that she doesn't feel connected to him, as when he gets home from work, he goes straight to the gym. Danelle also feels disconnected from her daughters, as they're teenagers now, and are at an age where they don't really want to talk to their mum about things. Michelle says that she feels the woman is very lonely, because every time she attempted to make movements to leave, Danelle didn't really pick up on them, or outright ignored them as she continued to talk. Michelle eventually says that she must go, and stands up to leave, this time making her way for the exit. Whilst she is leaving, Danelle remembers some female baby clothing that she was gifted once, and says that she won't ever need them as she is having a boy. Michelle reluctantly agrees to check the clothing out, and the two make their way to the lower area of the house. Danelle is looking for the clothes in a storage room and shuffling things around, but it is taking quite a while, and Michelle soon changes her mind, stating that she doesn't need or want the clothes, and that she is going to leave. She thanks Danelle for letting her into her home, the clothes, and for her hospitality, and then heads toward the stairs to the exit.
I was going up the stairs, and then as I was going up the stairs towards the door, she struck me from behind, right in my chest, and it's hard to describe exactly what it was. I mean, she hit me, and then it was sort of like, almost like pulling up my sweater, kind of scratching at me. After she struck me, I mean, part of me wanted to give her the benefit of the doubt, and I said, did I have a spider or a bug, or, you know, what was it? And she said, oh, I think I got it. And then she did it again. And so I was really confused about what she was trying to do. And she pulled me around by my sweater. She grabbed my sweater and she swung me around so I was facing the other direction. I kind of jerked myself away and I said, what are you doing? And she said, you know, and she said, like, threw her hands up as if in defense and said, well, why would you go into someone's house and do that to them? I felt like I was, you know, that this person is really unstable. And so I just held up my hands and I said, I don't want to hurt you, I just want to leave. She started saying, I don't trust you, you need to wait here while I call the cops. I didn't know where this was going. And so she's like grabbing me and trying to shove me towards the bathroom. And, you know, I'm pushing against her and we're sort of wrestling, you know, as I'm trying to get back towards the door. She was pushing me really forcefully towards the bathroom, and I guess at the last minute she threw me into the side bedroom. She kept threatening to call the cops. And so then I pulled out my cell phone at that moment and I said, well, I'll call the cops then. And she lunged for the phone and then she started hitting my face repeatedly with her fist. She kept pushing me back until I landed on my back on the bed. First she grabbed a pillow and she was trying to smother me with the pillow. And I was sort of windmilling my arms and trying to knock away the pillow. And at one point she did have it over my face and I was just trying to take deeper, you know, keep breathing, and which was really difficult. And so, but eventually, I guess I knocked it out of her hands and pulled it off and knocked it out of her hands because then she just went at me with her bare hands. She grabbed this bottle first from in front of the window, which the way it was floating, I thought it was like oil and vinegar. It was, I don't know, and she picked it up and she smashed it over my head, and that's when I held up my hand. I said, I don't know why you're doing this. I love you. And she said, if you love me, you'll let me do this. And then she stabbed it into my neck. I just remember everything was wet and slippery, and I remember when she stabbed me and then she removed it and then she continued to try to choke me after that. I remember thinking of Aurora and feeling like I just thought of her and I felt like I wanted to survive also for her. And so I fought back harder, and I remember she got up, she pinned down my arms with her legs and actually used, I remember she was trying so hard to choke me, and then when she got closer, she just bore down with her whole weight on the heel of her hand over my windpipe, and I just remember everything going black.
The object that was used to strike Michelle was a lava lamp owned by one of Danelle's daughters, as this attack was taking place in her daughter's bedroom. After the lamp had shattered over the crown of Michelle's head, a large shard of the thick glass was what was used to stab her in the neck. Michelle loses consciousness. Then, using 2 knives, Danelle slices a large incision from one end of Michelle's hip to the other. From this wound, she removes the baby Aurora. She runs upstairs and places Aurora face down in the empty bathtub. Knowing that her fiancé will be home shortly, as the time is just after 1 p.m, she runs back downstairs to clean up. She finds that blood had soaked through the bedding and into the mattress, and also through the carpet on the floor. Michelle is rolled off of the bed and falls to the floor, and Danelle strips the sheets and throws them, along with a blood-soaked towel, into the washing machine. A total of 2 quick wash cycles are done. Whilst this is happening, the pillows from the bed are placed into garbage bags and hidden under a crib. Danelle removes all of her clothes except for her bra and underwear. They are placed into a garbage bag, along with bloody towels and other blood-soaked items. 1 knife is left downstairs in the bedroom, and the other is put in the kitchen sink upstairs. Danelle does not have much time before her fiancé gets home. She tries to call him twice, but he does not answer. She then sends him a text message asking why he's not picking up, before trying to call him again at 2:04 p.m. This time though, she manages to get through. She asks David if he can drop by her daughter's school on the way home to complete some paperwork that needed to be done, and he does agree to do this. After the phone call, Danelle gets straight back to cleaning. Ridley describes her demeanour over the phone as being very calm and no sense of distress in her voice at all. Anxious to get to this doctor's appointment, Ridley arrives home, and according to police documents, this is what he found. Quote, David Ridley stated that he left work early today and arrived at his residence at around 2:15 p.m. He planned on taking Danelle to a prenatal checkup appointment. He arrived home and walked down the stairs towards the basement. As he did so, Danelle walked around the corner covered in blood. She told David she just miscarried, and the baby was in the bathtub upstairs. David ran upstairs to the bathroom and found a small baby lying in the bathtub. He rubbed the baby slightly, then rolled it over, to hear and see it take a gasping breath. David wrapped the baby in a towel and ran back downstairs. He told Danelle to get ready to go to hospital. When they arrived at LUH, David escorted Danelle into the emergency room holding the baby. End quote. At 2:47 p.m, as Danelle and he arrive at the hospital emergency, holding whom he believes to be his child, Danelle is by his side and is crying, screaming over and over, "Save my baby, save him, save him." Medical staff do their best to assist, and any time one attempts to examine her, as they were concerned that she may be bleeding, she would redirect attention away from her and towards the baby again. The baby is pronounced dead, and the couple are given some time alone with her to grieve. Once Danelle learned that the baby had passed, she is said to have calmed down a fair amount, but her fiancé, Ridley, was devastated, holding the baby and walking around, cradling her and crying. As this is happening, a dying and blood-soaked Michelle wakes up on the floor of Danelle's daughter's bedroom.
I woke up on the floor of the room, and I remember my first instinct was to get up, and I just felt this really intense pain in my stomach. And I looked down and, I just saw this really big cut across my stomach, and I pulled my pants for, high-waisted pregnancy pants, so I pulled them up. I kind of started thinking maybe she's still in the house. Should I go? I can't outrun her. You know, if I'm in so much pain, I can't outrun her if I go through the front door. And I was kind of putting together an escape plan in my head. You know, should I climb out the window or make a run for it? And the first thing I thought I would do was just block the door. And so I just stood up, and my feet couldn't support me, so I just fell forward and on top of my hand. And when I did that, I just felt the blood seeping through my pants, and I could feel my intestines outside of my body. And so I just stumbled back to the bed and laid down on my back and picked up my phone. I kept trying to put my code in, and my fingers were fumbling, and so it accidentally swiped onto the emergency screen, so I ended up just making the call from there.
911, address of the emergency.
1620 Green Place.
1620 what?
Green Place.
I can't understand the street.
Green Place.
Green Place. Green like the color?
Yeah.
Okay, tell me what happened.
She cut me.
Who cut you?
Downstairs. I don't know.
Okay, hold on.
I responded to.
Hang on.
Craigslist.
Hold on.
Please. I'm downstairs.
Okay, who cut you?
This girl I responded to was ready for that.
What did she cut you with?
A knife. I'm pregnant. She got me in my stomach.
Okay.
I'm afraid.
She cut you in your stomach?
I'm pregnant.
Okay. What is the suspect's name?
I don't remember.
Hang on, okay? I'm going to just... She is.
I'm bleeding out.
I know you need to stay on the phone with me, okay? I'm getting everybody to you, okay?
And then my sister, I'm bleeding out.
I know, you stay with me, okay? I got everybody coming to help you. You stay on the phone. Don't hang up. How far along are you?
7 months.
7 months? Okay. Are you alone in the house?
I don't know.
You stay with me. Don't go to sleep. You stay with me. You're downstairs in the basement? And are you alone?
Yeah.
Okay.
I locked the door.
Don't you go to sleep, okay? You stay on the phone with me. Can you tell me, did she have any other weapons besides a knife?
She broke a glass.
She broke a glass? Did she stab you with the broken glass also?
Yeah. How long?
They're on their way, okay? I need you to take a towel and put it on your wound. How many wounds do you have?
No. She did it all.
More than one?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Help.
We got everybody in the way. They're trying to find you now.
I heard the doorbell ring. Is that them?
Okay.
Are they ringing the doorbell? She cannot get to it.
Help.
She's downstairs?
Yeah, they're here.
Okay, I'll let you go.
She was covered, covered from head to toe in blood. And then the entire room was also blood everywhere. As soon as I entered the room, I went straight to the side of the bed where she was, and began to ask her what happened and where she was injured. And she pointed to her stomach and said she had been stabbed in her stomach. She had maternity pants on and the stretchy material, so I pulled them up and looked down, and I saw her intestines hanging out of her stomach.
Okay. Was Ms. Wilkins conscious?
She was.
And did you talk to her?
I did, yes, sir.
I don't know why. I just reached out for his hand, and he held my hand while he started going through my injuries. I remember Billy calling for the EMT guys to get down there, and they loaded me up onto a stretcher. I just remember someone, touching my wounds, and it was just so painful. I just asked them to put me under, and I remember someone, I don't remember exactly what was said, they just said something along the lines of, we're going to take care of you, or something, and then they put me under.
When did you first realize that you were no longer pregnant with the boy?
It was not till the next day in the hospital when I woke up.
And someone told you what had happened to a boy? Do you remember?
I think I realized.
As Michelle reaches the emergency department, this is where Danelle and her fiancé are with Aurora. Hospital staff move the couple to another part of the building, as they don't want to further traumatize what they believe to be a grieving mother with the sight of a horrific stabbing victim. Shortly after they are moved, Ridley leaves to go and collect his fiancé's daughters from school. Danelle is left alone with the body of the baby. Before Michelle goes under for surgery, she gives an officer the passcode to her phone so that he can search through it. She enters surgery, which lasts for around 5 hours, and the surgeon says that she had lost over half of her body's blood. He also mentions that the incision to her stomach, which removed the baby, although crude, was surprisingly not half bad, the sort of attempt at a C-section that he would see from a first-year intern. The incision itself was too big, and muscles were sliced instead of separated, the uterus cut far too high. But overall, it was roughly in the right area and going through the right layers. He was surprised and believes that the person who did this attack would have had some medical background and or done research on C-sections. The officer who has Michelle's phone goes through it and sees text messages exchanged between Michelle and a person whom they quickly learn is Dynel Lane. Law enforcement officers are notified that Danelle is currently in the very hospital that they are in with Michelle, and they are sent out to question her.
And what are the cuts on your hand?
You know what? I don't know. I didn't even. When I came upstairs and she said that I cut my hand.
Okay, was anyone with you at your house today?
No, I've been by myself all day.
Okay, Danielle, I've got a problem. There's a young girl in your apartment. And she was cut. Because we've got officers there right now. At my house? Yes. You know how that happened?
I don't. There wasn't anybody there when I left.
Is it Dynel? Is that pronounced right? My name's Danny. So I'm going to hang out with you for a bit just to see what's going on, okay? And then we'll get this sorted out as quickly as possible.
I don't understand. I don't know what she's talking about.
What was she saying?
She said there was a woman at my house and my baby just died. I can't believe that.
What's the deal with the girl?
I don't know. She said there was some girl at my house and she kept asking me if I was by myself today, and I said I'm always by myself. I was getting ready for my doctor's appointment and she's like, well, did you have any visitors today? And I said no.
You sure you don't know who that lady maybe she was talking about?
I don't know what's going on, sir. I really wish I did. I'm just about as confused as you guys are.
That's what I'm trying to figure it out. Is there a probability that the DNA for the baby won't match you?
No, she's lying.
100%?
Discovering that Michelle is still alive, the pressure really begins to mount for Danelle, as she has no idea if and what Michelle is telling police. To compound on top of this, she is aware that the DNA test she's just given won't match the baby, and a pelvic exam that was performed on her revealed that she has not been recently pregnant. When the OBGYN comes back in the room to talk to her regarding the results of her pelvic exam, she tells him her version of events regarding Michelle being found in her house.
So she told me that she was at home and that a pregnant woman had come to her house to purchase some baby clothes. And that while she was there, that Michelle had, for some reason, attacked Danelle with a knife. She then said that afterwards, then the pregnant woman had started stabbing herself, and that Danelle was concerned about the welfare of the baby, and so Danelle felt she had to save the baby's life and therefore cut the baby out of her.
This story is then conveyed to police, and Danelle faces another interview where she decides to elaborate on her version of events.
She's like, well, I need to go. I was like, okay. So I turned around, and before I knew it, she had, I think it was the knife that I had opened my box with that had been sitting on the counter. That's, I think, how I cut my hand. But she came at me, and I just kind of reacted, and then we ended up in my daughter's room, and she just kept trying to hit me. And I asked her, I was like, what are you doing? I'm like, stop. And I didn't have my phone with me, so I was grasping at her, and she was grasping at me, and I finally had gotten to the point where I had her down, and I'm like, just stop. And she was just flailing, she wouldn't stop, and it just seemed like every time I would kind of get leverage, she would come at me again. She kept trying to punch me, and she was trying to bite me.
Did she get a punch on you or bite you?
She hit me a couple times on the side, but I mean, it wasn't direct. It was just a
glancing blow.
Okay. I think I choked her. I don't even know. It was a struggle. It was a big struggle, and I was yelling. I was trying to maybe get my neighbors to hear me, and I was trying to grab for her phone. She wouldn't stop.
Do you remember which hand she had the knife in?
No.
Do you remember?
I was walking up the stairs.
Okay.
She pushed my head, and I didn't hit my head. It was just completely I don't know. I'm trying to make sense of it all. After she stopped moving, I got scared, and I started thinking about the baby. But it wasn't long after that my husband came home.
What were you thinking about with the baby?
I thought I killed her. I was like, I killed this woman. They always tell you not to do things by yourself on Craigslist, but I didn't. It was a pregnant woman. I didn't think anything of it.
What happened when she was unconscious before your husband got home?
I thought I killed her, and I didn't want the baby to die too. I don't do stuff like this. I didn't know what to do.
We're not judging you, Dynel.
I know. I'm judging myself. But what do you do in a situation like that? I reacted. I can't even say it. I got the knife that she had. Then I tried to get the baby out. And took the baby upstairs. back downstairs to find my phone. And I couldn't find it. And he came in the door just as I was coming back upstairs. Before I took the baby upstairs, I did try and give her mouth to mouth.
The baby? So she wasn't crying when you removed her?
When I went back downstairs to find my phone, the girl was moaning and she was crying. No, she wasn't crying. She was just making like breathing sounds, and I got scared.
This is a lady in the basement.
I know I should have said something then, but I didn't. I just got scared. I just left her there.
There was no evidence to support Danelle's version of events. One small, yet potent example of this would be her claim that Michelle had come to her house to sell her clothes, not the other way round. In the face of this story, there is not only the Craigslist ad to say otherwise, but text messages exchanged between the two ladies. Furthermore, she fails to tell police about the detail that Michelle had begun stabbing herself, something that she told the doctor only moments earlier. This, in effect, meant that Danelle had two differing stories, and no evidence to support either of them. And finally, she left a dying woman on the floor of her daughter's bedroom. After the attack, instead of calling 911 to report the attack, she opted instead to clean her house. The questions raised are, why was this? Why did she not tell her fiancé about the assault? And why did she pretend that the child was hers? Dynel is arrested and faced with 9 criminal charges, one of them being attempted first-degree murder, and another is the unlawful termination of a pregnancy. A huge point of contention relating to these charges in this case was the DA's inability to charge her with murder for the death of Aurora. The DA would explain his position in detail during a press conference as to why it was he could not pursue the murder charge.
Some of you know that from the coroner, who issued a press release a couple hours ago, I learned that the autopsy conducted by an expert pathologist, Dr. Leon Kelly, did not find any medical or physical evidence that the baby, Aurora, ever took a breath after being taken from her mother. In Dr. Kelly's opinion, this was not a live birth. According to Dr. Kelly, and I quote, "The autopsy and investigation failed to provide evidence that the child exhibited signs of life outside of the womb." We do not know the exact cause of death of Aurora, as there were no other injuries or other medical issue to explain it. Colorado criminal law, and we talked about this about a week ago, defines homicide as the killing of a person by another. And it defines a person, when referring to the victim of a homicide, as a human being who had been born and was alive at the time of the homicidal act. A person does not include a fetus, even if the child is born following the injury, which ultimately results in its death. On this point, Colorado law is absolutely unambiguous. Now, I understand that many people in the community, and heaven knows I've heard from a lot of them, would like me to have filed homicide charges. However, that is not possible under Colorado law without proof of a live birth. A prosecutor cannot file murder charges when a baby who is killed has not lived outside the body of the mother. As district attorney, I have a sworn duty to uphold, to apply, and to enforce the law as it currently stands. District attorneys do not decide what the law is. They enforce the law as written. I have a sworn ethical duty not to file criminal charges against anyone that are not supported by law in existence at the time and by the admissible evidence, regardless of my personal opinion of the law.
Even though the arrest warrant claimed that Ridley told officers he saw the baby take a breath and gasp for air, he later would say that he in fact never saw this. The baby had her mouth wide open, and it looked as though she were gasping for air, but he never actually saw her do it. The trial was only a short one, spanning 3 days, with the defense team calling no witnesses to the stand. Throughout the trial, the defense did not argue once whether Danelle committed these acts or not. Their main argument would lie in the charge of first-degree attempted murder. To be guilty of this crime, the state would need to prove that the attack was premeditated. The evidence that the state presents to suggest premeditation was mainly the Craigslist posting and Danelle researching a day before the attack, quote, "What happens to a cervix after childbirth?" end quote. And there was one anatomical image depicting the bladder of a female that they found on her phone from the day before. The state would also put a highlight on the theory that she had no job, no money, and was facing being kicked out of her home if her lie was to be discovered. Finding someone to steal a baby and then say she had a miscarriage was the narrative that they would attempt to sway the jury with. The defense would passionately argue that this is not the case, that the attack was a spur-of-the-moment decision and that no premeditation was involved. They would ask the jury to find her guilty, not of attempted murder, but instead attempted manslaughter.
She had a baby shower for a baby boy. She told her friends that she had a baby boy. She was going to have a baby boy. All of that shows you that she was portraying having a baby boy. If you're going through all that trouble, don't you think if it's your intent to cut someone's baby out, that you're going to take some time to find a woman pregnant with a baby boy? Why would you put an ad on Craigslist and then not respond to people if your intent was to cut their baby out? Why would you have a whole day go by where you have the whole entire day? Miss Lane had all of March 17th from 8 to 5 p.m. If that was her intent, why didn't she do it then? Why didn't she respond immediately to Miss Wilkins on March 17th? Please come over at 8 a.m. because she knows every single day her husband leaves at 8 a.m. Why wouldn't she give herself as much time as possible? She's cutting someone's baby out. That's what they're alleging. The whole purpose of this is to cut someone's baby out. If that is what her intent was, why wouldn't she do that way earlier? She didn't do that because she never planned, prepared, or processed any of this. Does she then do anything in order to get ready for this day, the day she's cutting someone's baby out? No. She starts texting her good friend Sabrina Miller, and she has a conversation with Miss Miller on Facebook about Miss Miller's problems, what's going on with her. After she stops messaging with Miss Miller, then she talks to her on the phone, and they have multiple conversations up and until Miss Wilkins arrives. Nothing from that morning shows anything out of the normal. The prosecution wants you to believe that on the 17th, she did all this research, right? She does this research to cut someone's baby out. And what did they bring you? What happens to your cervix? What does this have to do anything with cutting someone's baby out? Oh, but wait. We have the picture of the urinary bladder, right? The muscular reservoir where your urine from the kidneys collects before being evacuated through the urethra. This is all they found. This is all they found because there was nothing researched about any of this because none of it was planned, prepared, or processed. This is not proof beyond a reasonable doubt. This isn't even someone who's pregnant. If your whole intent for that day is to cut this woman's baby out, you're going to kill her, why wouldn't you do that immediately? She's running out of time. They move into the kitchen, and they're in the kitchen for over an hour. Why didn't she take a knife there and stab her? Why didn't she take a pot and hit her over the head there? Be way easier to clean up in the kitchen. Miss Wilkins is at an all-time vulnerability. At that point, she's playing with the bunny. And what do? They talk about Miss
The jury would ultimately find Dynel Lane guilty on all charges, and she is to spend the rest of her life behind bars, sentenced to 100 years. I'd like to make a note that at this point of the video, I've moved away from research and am now speaking from my own thoughts and feelings. One would like to believe that as humans, although we may come from different countries, speak different languages, and share different views, I like to believe there's a few universal similarities that we each understand and recognize within each other. One of those universal human connections, I believe, would be the love that a mother has for her child. No matter if one is a human from different sides of the world, or even an animal, the love that a mother exhibits for her child is something that is special beyond belief, something that is well documented, and it's a love that is so strong that it doesn't require spoken language or even a loving mother of one's own to understand how it plays a role in the lives of so many. So to learn that a mother who was in the early process of forming this link with her baby had her body sliced open and her child ripped from within her, in my opinion, is pure evil. Just as I mentioned that recognizable love between a mother and a child, so too is there a universal language for evil. And what Dynel did, it's a brand of it that is in a league that sits near the top of the pyramid of horrific crimes one can commit against another. This is the brutalization of not only two physical entities, one whom is relying on the other for life, but the fracturing, and in this case, the elimination of a beautiful and deeply emotional process, which is as old as the human race itself. I don't know what Dynel's reasons were, but she embodied the word evil when she decided to attack Michelle Wilkins on March 18th, 2015. Not only destroying this woman's future family, but her very own as well. I found myself dwelling over the pain that her ex-fiancé, David Ridley, must have felt, as he cradled the child whom he believed to be his own, a child that he had been so excited to meet, and one that was going to be born against all odds. The thought of him standing in the ER, weeping whilst he held someone else's child, truly brings a sadness over me that I don't know if I fully understand. The combination of the pain of a grieving father, mixed with the confusion he must have faced upon realizing the truth, is really a version of sadness that I haven't had to contemplate before, and it is one that will stick with me for a long time to come. Speaking of confusion, my thoughts turn to the confusion of Dynel's daughters. What do they do from here? Where do they all go? Everything has been disrupted. 1 minute they are teenagers living their lives, and the next they are the daughters of a mother who stole a baby from someone else's womb, a monster beyond comprehension. How are these girls meant to react to that? And for what reason do they face this struggle? Because the lies of their mother were going to come to light. How insulting to everyone who ever loved her. To the people like her daughters who probably do still love her. Moving on from those thoughts though, an interesting fact of this case was that the death of her 19-month-old son was reinvestigated after she was found guilty. And once again, no foul play was found. It appears that the loss of her son truly was a tragic accident. This does add a layer of depth to this woman's actions, I believe. Nothing that could ever come close to excusing them, but opens up a window for us towards understanding what the hell happened. Psychologists would say that the pain of losing her son would have caused serious emotional damage to Dynel, and she quite possibly, hastily, had her tubes tied when that may not have been the right decision for her. In the years following, she slowly succumbed to mental illness, which led to a form of PTSD that could have been triggered more and more as the years went on, damaging her as she aged, rather than healing, the opposite of what time so often does. This could be an explanation for her desire to tell others that she was pregnant when she was not, as that would have been a form of release for a trauma that she had not fully processed or healed from. Another element of this case that I found rather confronting in a different sort of way, as I read many others did as well, was the legality of whether Aurora Wilkins is legally classified as a person or not. I understand that the law can be cold, and doesn't tend to bend for people's feelings. Yet it is rather difficult for me to view a child, even one growing in a womb, as anything other than a person. This argument of whether a child is classed as a person should they have taken a breath outside of the womb is really quite a difficult one for me to resolve in my mind. Every part of me screams to say, the child is alive. At 7 months, it is beyond the point of being a fleshy mound of growing organs and bones within the mother. At this point, it is a recognizable human child. So if that child were healthy and on track to enter into this world, then its life be taken away by the actions of another. How is that not able to be classified as the murder of a person? As a result of this case, Colorado politicians would attempt to introduce a bill that would allow for fetal homicide laws. The bill was rejected. The third time one like this failed in the state, and at the time of writing this, the subject is still a sensitive one that is an ongoing debate. Michelle's positivity and attitude after her attack have truly blown me away, saying numerous times that she forgives Danelle, even if Danelle will never ask for forgiveness. She has given interviews and been rather outspoken since her time in court, sharing openly about her healing process and being active in programs that help people in need from many different scenarios, be it addiction recovery, reintegration into society after prison, and homelessness. She would say, quote, "There's multiple things happening in the process of healing. There is the active participation, going to therapy, exercising every day. Then there are other ways that are more receptive. The process happening inside of us that we don't always have control over. The pain, and being honest about it as we work to be more present. That's what I think is the difference between getting caught in a loop of trauma and being overwhelmed by the trauma. Slowly but surely, it's possible to really find your ground so that you won't be overwhelmed. But all the while, you acknowledge and are being honest with it. It's been a long process, and it's going to be a long process. And I don't ever anticipate a day that I won't grieve my daughter, or won't be impacted by that experience. But by being a victim, I will not be bound by perpetual suffering." End quote. Here are some short excerpts from interviews with Michelle following Danelle's conviction.
It was really another example of a paradox of life being extremely beautiful and extremely cruel. And I did all the things that, a mom would want to do. I read to her, I dressed her, I held her, but knowing that she was only present in spirit and not physically was a really painful thing to grasp. Not being able to witness her first breath or her first smile or even seeing what her eyes looked like was extremely difficult. I definitely believe there's sort of a paradox that I alluded to earlier, which is that this life is extremely beautiful and this life is extremely difficult and cruel. And, somewhere between those two experiences, I think that I'm able to live between those two things that says there are so many gifts and lessons that come out of the hardest experiences of our lives.
Although Aurora Wilkins was not classified by the state as a legal person, Michelle would make sure that her daughter had her moment during the trial.
I choose to use my time to address you directly, Dynel, because up to this very moment you have refused to acknowledge us, the victims of your violent actions. I am a compassionate person. This is the foundation of the beliefs from which all others grow. It is clear that you need healing, and it is my sincere belief that you get it. However, there were atrocities committed against me and my daughter that sent a ripple of pain out to so many others, and they must be addressed. Those committed against Aurora's father and all of her grandparents, against law enforcement and first responders who cannot unsee the trauma that you created, and against your partner and daughters who surely have guilt, shame, and trauma of their own to wrestle with for the rest of their lives because of you. I did not learn until the trial just how many opportunities you had to do the right thing and then chose not to. You knowingly left me to die multiple times. The only tears that you shed during the trial were those of self-pity to the sound of your own voice as your lies were slowly revealed. And yet, even now, you cannot come clean about what actually occurred. You embrace your narcissistic fantasy to fulfill the lie you created, and it was more important than my right to live and Aurora's right to live. This is a picture of her.
I'm going to object at this point.
Thank you. Ms. Lane, please direct your comments to me.
I trust the judge to make a wise decision on what you believe to be fair, but I believe that you should receive the maximum penalty because I believe you've lost your privilege to live in our society, not only because of your actions during the attack, but also your actions since the attack. Your inability to acknowledge the immense cruelty and evil you committed only proves you are not fit to walk free amongst us ever again. What is done cannot be undone, but I fervently hope that you use the rest of your time on this earth with meditation and prayer to help you come to terms with what you have done. It is your only chance for healing the hurt that you have caused.
And our objection at this point, this is inappropriate. May we approach, Your Honor?
Everybody sit down. Ms. Wilkins, is there anything else you want me to know?
That is all.